Thank you. What a cool evening. Incredible stuff that you've come up with. And it makes me even more happy that you invited me. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be with you this evening. And thank you to the EPFL and the Ingénieurs du Monde for having put it together. I also have to congratulate you for the engagement, the commitment, the creativity you bring to our collective efforts to address the 2030 agenda. The EPFL's research projects, from the Blue Brain project to tackling essential technology needs in emerging countries and addressing global energy needs for tomorrow, is impressively touch almost the entire spectrum of the SDG universe. Speaking now, it's a little difficult for somebody who's not a scientist, but let me, I think the value added I can bring to your discussions tonight is maybe to take a bit of a bird's eye view of what we're looking at. And there's two particular points that strike me as critical in the context of our discussion today. The first is the issue at hand, namely how research, science, and technology is absolutely essential in the delivery of the 2030 agenda and every single one of these SDG goals. The second is the way not only we can, but the way we have to work together. That is, how can we better connect governments, the UN, startups, academia, and everybody else who has something to do with implementing the SDGs, not just in terms of our ambitions and goals, but in our very practical day-to-day efforts. Let's start with the issue at hand. If I had to summarize in few words in which most of us at the UN think about technology, it would be this: to maximize its positive impact on people and planet on the one hand, and to limit its risks of their misuse on the other. I don't think you need me to tell you that both the benefits and the risks are enormous today. And both are unfolding at breakneck speed. I probably don't need to tell you, but it's something that we all need to consider, that 90% of the data that exists today in the world was just created just in the last 2 years. Virtually everything and every so-called frontier issue is today very much a front door issue, if not a living room issue. The advances of the fourth industrial revolution, brought on by a combination of computing power, robotics, big data, and artificial intelligence, are generating revolutions in all of the issues that we heard today, whether it's healthcare, transport, manufacturing, etc. And I am convinced, as are many of my colleagues, that these new capacities can help us to lift millions of people out of poverty, achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and enable developing countries to leap into a better future. And today's presentation are just a few of the further proof of these incredible tools at our disposal. But technological process can be a two-faced Janus. For every opportunity gives rise to challenging and daunting challenges at times. Technology can deliver the entirety of human knowledge to a child in a remote village on a single handheld device. But it also enables hate speech to spread like wildfire through social media, to violate the privacy of people, to equip some governments and corporations with the means for surveillance of almost anyone, anywhere, at any time. Artificial intelligence, to quote the CEO of Google, and you must have heard him, will be as profound for humanity's progress as electricity or fire. But at the same time, you have the McKinsey Global Institute that has calculated that 370 million people, that's 14% of the global workforce, could have their jobs automated away by 2030. So it's clear to me, and I think to most of us, that we are neither prepared nor even preparing fast enough for the economic and social disruptions ahead of us. The question, of course, is how do we get into a position where we can become quicker, nimbler, and more responsive. Because technology moves so fast, the time it takes to gather people to draw up a convention, to discuss, approve, ratify, and implement it, by the time all of that has happened and is achieved, everything will already be different, and we will already be obsolete. So clearly we need a different approach. And that brings me to my second point, which is how we, scientists, diplomats, politicians, and citizens can work better together. And it was interesting to listen to all of you today, because that was very much the red thread in many of the things that you were saying. And the good news, of course, is also what we're talking about tonight, is that we have two critical ingredients for this. We have already a detailed global roadmap, the 2030 agenda, that all of us can get behind to move forward together. And we also have a neutral platform, a global platform, a neutral table, if you wish, where everyone has a place, which is the organizations I come from, the United Nations. It's here that governments, academics, scientists, companies, and civil society from across the world can find ways around this neutral table to agree on the protocols and the mechanisms that ensure the power of technology will become a force for good, benefiting everyone everywhere. If we don't succeed in humanizing technology and educating and empowering people to engage, we'll end up technologizing humanity with little regard for human values, norms, and freedoms. A very specific part of technology that I'm particularly concerned with these days is the weaponization of artificial intelligence and other new technologies, where there's absolutely no control, no governance, nor any ethical elements being put into them so far, and where the speed with which these are being developed in the private sector mostly are completely eluding us. And unless we get our collective act together, we are going to have a very serious problem. So neither governments, nor the UN, nor scientists, nor anyone else can alone face these challenges and solve them posed by rapid technological progress. The only way forward is through better, closer, and faster cooperation. International Geneva, where I just came from, and indeed the entire Lake Leman region, we're all part of the same region, has a standout role in this regard. As the operational heart of the international system, its unique ecosystem of actors, over 180 member states are represented in Geneva, over 100 international organizations, hundreds of NGOs, over 1,600 multinationals have their offices in this region, world-class academic institutions, we are in one of them. This is a place where much of what I described in the abstract is already happening in practice. And let me just mention one thing that I'm particularly excited about, and that is the just created and approved, government-approved new entity with a slightly clunky title that's called the Science and Diplomacy Anticipator, whose main engine and instigator was your former rector, Mr. Ebischer. And that is now coming into place. And I think it speaks precisely to what I've just been talking about and what most of you have been talking about, on how we figure out a smart way to make sure that that frontline and new technologies are used in the best possible way to make sure that those who implement projects and those who go out and make development and help countries get to where they need to go on these goals, that they have the best tools possible to do that. And your meeting really has been a fantastic example of that new spirit of partnership, and I hope that we can build on it, and I hope that it's just the beginning of a more in-depth exchange and creative collaboration. We are very proud to be your partners. Thank you very much.